tonight, we just wanted to introduce you and just talk a little bit about One Book, One New Orleans before we move on to the event for tonight. How many of you have heard of One Book, One New Orleans?
Yay!
Oh, everyone? Okay, cool. So what we do is we select one book a year, and we encourage the entire city to read the same book. And this year's book is Daughter of the New Year by Tran. So what we do each month is we have different events related to the book, so it's not necessarily just a book discussion, but it somehow is related to a theme in the book. And food was very important, so this is why we are doing this event tonight. So before we really get going, I just want to thank New Orleans Public Library for hosting this event with us. So thank you. We appreciate it. And one of the partnerships we formed this year related to the book is VIET. So thank you. They're going to be the ones tonight with the plate portion of this event. So with that being said, oh, and I also want to thank our co-events chair, Liz, over here. She's behind the camera. And with that being said, we're going to turn it over to Alexis.
Hi, my name is Alexis. I'm the interim director at VIET. A part of one of our initiatives in commemoration of our program is honoring the 50th anniversary of the Fall of Saigon, where like my mom and my grandparents came over from Vietnam 50 years ago and settled here in New Orleans. So through the city, we were granted a grant to culturally share and spread awareness to this and give a piece of us to you guys. So a way we found most engaging is food. What better way to the heart than your mouth, right? So that's why today, once Em read some of the excerpts in her book, it had a lot of correlation with the food that I brought here today. Some things that you might have seen in the store and like, oh no, I'm not buying it, or maybe I want to try it and don't want to. So that's just a little piece of what we're bringing to you guys today.
Thank you so much. Hi everyone. Hi. Thank you so much for coming. I know that 5 o'clock during rush hour, especially, if you're coming straight from work, is not always the easiest time to come, which is why I have my, sometimes we do these events and it's like, oh yeah, real life, I have to pick up my child from daycare and bring him. So he's here, and it's so funny, having a child of my own now, because you really realize how much of your day and your time is organized around making sure your child eats, and it happens again and again every day, like it never ends. Like, oh, it's a new day and you have to plan another meal. And so, thinking about that as an adult has really given me a new appreciation for what my own mother did when I was a kid. And she cooked, I remember her cooking every dinner from scratch, which is, really remarkable, especially now, like every night I'm like, I have to cook, so, and whatever gets your child fed is a beautiful way to feed your child, so, I just have a new respect for it. So a lot of my book is about food and culture, and there's a lot of food-centric scenes, and so I really love this event. We did a version of this event at the New Orleans East Library, and at that time I actually didn't realize how many of my scenes were food-centric until I went through my book and I was like, oh, and there I'm talking about food, and there I'm talking about food, and I love to eat, but it's also because a lot of Vietnamese culture happens around the dinner table, it happens around food, it happens around cultural dishes, and so much of it is because, my parents and many other immigrants are displaced from their homeland, and so the way that they feel reconnected to that homeland is through food. And I think people in New Orleans can relate to that as well. Like, so much of our culture is passed down through food history, and so much about just like the freedom to choose what you eat is related to lots of political issues and lots of geographic issues. He's reaching for the scissors, of course. He's like, let me find the most dangerous thing. So don't touch that, please. Thank you. So I'm just going to read two maybe slightly longer excerpts that focus on food. And and then I'll turn it over to our food demonstration with Alexis. And the first thing I said when I walked in was not hello, it was shrimp chips. So I'm really excited about the shrimp chips. Okay, so this first scene is actually later on in the book, and it is based on a real story about a story that my parents told me about the first time they met. And so I reimagined that story in my book. It is fictionalized, but it's very much inspired by about the first time they met, of course revolved around food. So Swan and Kung, the two characters, meet at a refugee party, which is just a party with a bunch of refugees in New Orleans. And there's some gambling and drinking happening. Swan took a deep breath. She was lonely, after all. The stairs creaked and groaned. The door at the top was ajar. Light spilled out into the darkness. A Chinese elm grew against and around the stairwell, its trunk pressed against the metal spindles like flesh, bound by rope. Swan ran her hand against the flaky lace bark. The apartment felt like an oven, and the door was open to help circulate air from bodies and their mingling heat. There weren't many people, maybe 20, but right then it felt like 100 crammed into that one-room apartment. Have I died and God is rewarding me for my brave, virtuous life? Maybe I'll just read one excerpt. A man in a white shirt and loose khakis pushed through the crowd to sling his arm around Lynn. He clutched at his heart as if mortally wounded by their beauty. His shirt was speckled with oil and what appeared to be tomato juice. "Shut up," Lynn said, but she looked pleased. Swan could not believe this flirtatious expression would ever grace Lynn's face in the presence of the dirty, forward man. "Oh, Hung, this is Swan and Lun. We went to school together in Saigon. Rich girls," he said. "Hung and I worked together at the restaurant," Lynn said, and Hung's stained shirt made more sense. Lynn worked at a diner, but she was only allowed to bus tables because she didn't speak English very well. Swan guessed this man was probably a dish boy. His hands looked dirty, likely from soap and hot water, with dirt under his fingernails. He had the posture of someone with a few drinks in him. In the back corner of the apartment, people crowded around a table where men played cards. Loose bills and coins sat piled in the middle, and smoke from their cigarettes hung in the air above them. They hooted and shouted, thumping the table, people egging them on or rooting for particular players. Others milled around, men with Heinekens in hand, or women with clear plastic cups full of ice cubes floating in cheap wine. Swan had never been to a party like this before. Her friends sometimes sneaked her into the bar where she worked, but otherwise, this was far from what Swan knew to be a party. Hung disappeared and reappeared, clutching green long-neck bottles against his body. He handed them each a beer, a gesture so generous, Swan felt her distaste ebb away. "What's going on back there?" said Lun. "They're gambling," said Hung. "You should go put some money in the pot." "But I don't know how to play the game." "You don't need to know how to play the game," he said. So she began making her way to the table, the neck of the sweaty beer clutched in her hand. Swan wanted Lun to stay next to her. She felt empty and lost without her there, open to attack. "Is this your beer?" Swan said. They all struggled so much to make ends meet. She felt guilty taking the free drink. "No, that guy over there bought all the drinks for this party," he said. He pointed to a man standing over the gambling table, yelling at one of the players to put more money in the pot. Lun was over there holding a $5 bill, unsure of what to do with it. Swan wished she wouldn't spend it. "He won really big the other night playing blackjack and wanted to spread the joy. I'm not complaining," said Hung. He put his lips to the opening of his beer and took a long drag, smacking his lips after. Her benevolence towards him vanished. Hung was handing out beers with the generosity of a man who had paid for nothing. Lynn took small sips of her beer, grimacing. This tastes terrible, she said. You only say that because you're a woman, he said. What does that mean, said Swan. Women don't have a stomach for alcohol. Or women know when something is cheap, Swan said, taking a long draw from her beer while staring at Hung, and willed herself to remain stoic. Kung! Hung yelled across the room. The man making the ruckus at the gambling table stood up. Kung, this girl over here says the beer you bought is cheap. I didn't say it was cheap. I said I could tell if something was cheap. Kung weaved through the crowd, now making his way toward them. You, yourself, don't seem like a cheap date, Hung said. Must be hard to get guys to go out with you. You're so uptight. He grinned, some menace there. Her attitude was being interpreted as an invitation, a challenging pursuit, rather than a deterrent. How quickly he had abandoned her friend Lynn. He'd even withdrawn his arm from her shoulders, his body leaning towards one in unconscious display. Lynn, do you want to go to the bathroom with me? Swan asked. She wanted to get away. Lynn shook her head. She wanted to stay here with Hung. She didn't notice his change in interest. She'd always been bad at reading social situations. At the Cercle Sportif ball a few years ago, Lynn had accidentally cut the chairman's wife off mid-sentence to announce the pâté was delightful. She'd failed to notice the wife's coldness toward her and didn't know why she wasn't invited to the chairman's garden party later that month. When Swan told her, she had no memory of tense relations during the Cercle Sportif ball. But the pâté was delightful, Lynn said. Hello, ladies. Do you need me to take care of this guy for you? Kung had arrived. He swiped the beer from Hung's hand. You shouldn't drink any more, man. You turn into a real creep. Come on now, we're fast friends, aren't we? Hung wedged himself between Swan and Lynn, putting an arm around each of them. I'm Lynn. Hung and I work together. You probably work. Hung just shows up, Hung said. A sign laughed, swift from Swan. Hung turned his head towards her, nose almost touching her hair. You think that's funny, Swan? Kung picked up Hung's arm like a dead animal and placed it gently against his side, patting his hand. Excuse me, he said. I gotta show Swan something more interesting than you. Enjoy my beer. Although she hadn't introduced herself, her name sat easily on his lips. Without explanation, he steered Swan by the shoulders away from him, into the crowd, beating sweat on skin, brushing against them both as they passed through a sea of bodies. Where are we going? Swan said. Away from him, said Kung. Well, we're away now. What's next? We're going to put $20 in the pot, said Kung. Where are you going to get $20? Come on, trust me. I have a feeling you're going to win big. Swan did not have $20 to give him, but she didn't want to say this. She had never not had enough money, and now she was lucky if she had a few extra dollars for makeup or food or a beer after work. I'm not giving you $20, she said. Kung turned to the man standing next to him. Hey, Zui, lend me $5. Zui took a $5 bill from his pocket and handed it to Kung, who immediately handed it to Swan. Okay, put $5 in the pot. Everyone, he said, raising his voice, Swan, here is adding $5 to the pot. Yeah, and you're announcing it because? Record your bet like everyone else. A man sitting at the table holding his card close to his chest was pointing his free hand to Kung. Stop delaying the game. A flash of gold from his mouth. No time to add our bet to the list. That's why I'm announcing it. Lots of witnesses, see? Someone handed Kung a pair of dice. Blow on these for me. He held his open palm up to her mouth, and she blew on them. The dice knocked loudly as they rolled across the wooden table, and Swan didn't even get to see what he had landed on before the entire table erupted into groans and cheers, people standing both to collect winnings or to sulk away from the table. Kung took $10 from the pot, handing her $5 and giving the other $5 to Zui. You must be lucky, he said. Tigers aren't known for luck, she said, so it must be you. I'm a dragon, he said, knowing well that the dragon was regarded as the luckiest sign in the zodiac. His mischievous grin made him even more handsome. So I guess you owe me a favor for lending you some of my luck and winning you money. Kung drove a brand new red Mustang. It was bright and noisy, like Kung. All his charm and magnetism palpable the second he entered his space. There was something dangerous about him too, the way people spoke to him. Kung had told him, there's a first word here, to eat poop, but with the tone of someone who would retract it in a second if Kung chose to turn around. Perhaps that said more about Hung than Kung, but Swan could not explain the thrill, the breathlessness she could not control all night, wondering what he might do. even though he had not done anything to suggest a unique inclination for insanity. Maybe it was the sheer confidence, removing Hung's arm from her, lifting his hand to her mouth to blow on the dice, his announcement to the room that people actually stopped to hear, that both drew her in and made her nervous. That much confidence could be dangerous. "I'm taking you to dinner," he said. "Now? But it's almost 9. "I know a place," he said, and she accepted his vagaries without question. Although she could hear her mother's voice in her ear. "You barely know this man. There's no one there to chaperone you. Do you want to date a man that gambles? How can he afford this car?" Swan would learn later that Kung had leased the car and irresponsibly spent all of his paycheck to afford it, and this was an accurate reflection of his attitude toward everything. He expected more from everyone but himself. He was reckless and did what he wanted. His own recklessness was often the source of his troubles, and she would later see anger. People were charmed by, but also scared of him. But in this moment, Swan could not disentangle her reason from desire. He drove fast and looked over at her with a smile that made her feel seen. The restaurant sign glowed against the dark sky. It was a Chinese restaurant attached to a gas station. Swan had not had Asian food in a restaurant since a rainy day in April last year in Saigon. She'd gone to a cafe near the house for noodles. "It's good," he said. "I've been here a few times now. A couple of other Chinese places I've been to are weird. It's usually just American food with soy sauce. But this place tastes just like a restaurant I used to go to in my neighborhood. It's not Vietnamese food, but there aren't any restaurants yet. I guess we're supposed to open one of those ourselves if we want to eat in a Vietnamese restaurant." He laughed, seeming more nervous than he had all night. "Did you want to try?" "Yes," she said. "Yes, I want to try." And so he rushed out of the driver's seat and around to the passenger side to open her door, extending a hand to help her out of his car. She walked with him into the brightly lit, dingy restaurant. With her arm linked through his, he ordered egg noodle stir-fry and dumplings, green beans and garlic, crispy fried shrimp, a steaming pot of jasmine tea, loose leaves, floating in their small cylindrical cups, sat on the table among their plates, given without request. She stared at him through the steam floating above their food. She felt an overwhelming flood of homesickness, and she was sure it was because Kung reminded her of home. So I'll just read that one excerpt and I'll hand it over to Alexis. Thank you everyone for listening.
So, fun tip, my middle name is Swan, like the main character, and both of my daughters have Swan in their name, and my mom is Swan, and so you see the trend going on. So we did have lanterns because we just wanted to base it up just in case kids were here. Obviously, adults are more than welcome to make your own paper lanterns, but I'm thinking we could shift the gear and maybe we could eat and craft at the same time. So I'm just gonna run through the snacks. A lot of flavors are mainly shrimp. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's just because Vietnamese people are in the shrimping industry, and so everything is just shrimp flavor. So these are common. Fair warning, everything in here will probably make your breath stink. But it's okay, because that's just the purpose of introducing everybody to something new. So these are very common shrimp chips. I think they're mentioned in your book, if I'm not mistaken. And we have 3 different flavors. We have onion and garlic, barbecue, and then the original. And then we also have another form of shrimp chips. And these are just regular shrimp and garlic, I believe. And I honestly cannot tell you the name of these. But they are a staple of my childhood, and they taste like shrimp too. Just a different texture. And this one is definitely different to the tongue. It's shrimp and krill rolled in rice paper. So if you wanted to venture a little deeper into the Vietnamese culture, you're more than welcome to also try these. And to flush everything down, we have 2 traditional drinks. So we have, open this one. We have the chrysanthemum tea, which is not as sweet, it's very light. And then we have our traditional soybean drink for everybody to try as well. So if you want to try everything, you're more than welcome. I definitely could start an assembly line, and we have cups for everybody to get like little tasters and things like that. And if you want to pick up a coloring sheet while you're eating, please also grab that.